Okay guys, there's no working around it. This episode of the Book of Boba Fett contains some big heavy spoilers, big juicy stuff, and a lot of details to let us know where Star Wars might be going in the future. Let's start breaking this thing down. You've been warned. Big spoilers ahead. So the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 5, The Return of the Mandalorian, is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. Obviously, the show is also created by Robert Rodriguez and Jon Favreau. So in this breakdown, we're not only going to have spoilers for the Book of Boba Fett, but probably spoilers for The Mandalorian Season 2 and The Mandalorian Season 1. So just so you've been warned, if you haven't seen any of this, there's just no avoiding it. There's big stuff that happens in this episode. Part of me wishes this played in a theater because you would have heard the big pop the second that Din Djarin had appeared, and I really wish we could have been there to experience that. Unfortunately, this is one of the things we're going to lose with these streaming shows. While I love the fact that we have streaming shows because we get to do some world building and all this kind of stuff, it's great. I love that. It gives us more time for that, but literally we're missing these big exciting theater pop moments, and you know, I just wish we had that still. Oh my gosh, but the moment that you realize that this guy in this room is a bounty that Din Djarin is going after, phenomenal. I mean, it really just gave me a good feeling. It felt like an episode of The Mandalorian more so than an episode of Boba Fett, and I think that's perfectly fine, because if Din Djarin is going to take a part in the Book of Boba Fett, we want to know why he's there rather than just having him show up in the middle of it. It makes sense to do some building with him, where he's been, how he's going to be incorporated into the show. Oh my god, the action scene in the beginning with Din Djarin is great. It's phenomenal. And when he pulls out the darksaber, talk about another moment where the theater just would have gotten up and cheered. You would have gotten the big pop. Man, I wish we were there to experience that. I wish that could have happened, but again, streaming shows, gotta understand this is something we're gonna lose. I love that The Mandalorian is being brought into the show. I love seeing Din Djarin again. His presence just added a level of familiarity to a lot of the fans of The Mandalorian. Something about the vibe of the room and everything just made me feel like we were in a Clockwork Orange. I don't know, did anybody else feel like we were watching Clockwork Orange? Comment below and let me know. I'm not sure, but to me, for some reason, it felt like Clockwork Orange. And I think the Kubrick vibe is all over this thing, between the Clockwork Orange and we also had the 2001 Space Odyssey vibes with the planet that we were on. It also kind of looked like something out of the Halo games, which I kind of enjoyed. That little, it really is a Halo. It's kind of interesting to see. But we end up running into that Vizsla character. I don't know which Vizsla it's supposed to be still to this day. I don't think they've ever said, but he is of the Vizsla clan. And then we also have the armorer that the Mandalorian runs into. And he starts filling her in on everything that happened in the Mandalorian Season 2, how he obtained the darksaber, kind of why, you know, it doesn't really need to be in his possession, but, you know, it seems like he kind of wants it. At least to me, that's the vibe I got. I don't know about you guys. But of course, his mission is to go find Grogu, the kid. He wants to go see the kid. He also has his Beskar armor melded down into something for the kid, for Grogu. And I want to know what that was. I think it's going to be something similar to the knob that Grogu kept playing with in the ship, in the Razor Crest, because it looked very circular and spherical, if you ask me. So I think it might be that or something along the lines of that. Just as kind of a gift to him. I like that the armorer explained, you know, that, you know, Jedi are all kind of, you know, they're kind of about detachment, you know, so going to see the kid would be against the Jedi way, but that's kind of against the Mandalorian creed. The Mandalorian creed's all about honesty and loyalty, and I like that this was kind of explained to see where a conflict could be set up here if he does go to see Grogu. I mean, it begs the question, is Luke Skywalker going to get upset with Din Djarin if he does go visit Grogu? Will Luke Skywalker not want to have Grogu have this connection with Din Djarin? Who knows? But it's just all very interesting stuff that is being set up already in this episode. Then this member of the Vizsla clan comes in and he wants to duel Mandalorian for the darksaber. And it's like right off the bat, we're already having conflict. And he kind of comes in this moment where Din Djarin is training with the armorer on how to use the darksaber. I found things to kind of escalate fast throughout this episode, but in a very cool way. It was kind of like realistic the way that things escalated, because sometimes in life you'd be doing one thing with somebody and then your relationship can change with them all in a single second. So Din Djarin agrees to this duel, and they have the duel, and Din Djarin ultimately wins. For a second you think the Vizsla guy is going to win, but you know, Din Djarin, he ultimately does win. But then there's a catch to this where the armorer had to ask them if they've ever taken off their helmet, and the armorer asked them the question, and the Vizsla guy is like, nope, you know, I've stayed loyal to the Creed. And Mando said, yeah, he's taken off the helmet. And we know this because we've seen Mandalorian season 2. So right when she asked the question, there's a lot of tension when you're watching this, and you're like, whoa, this is not going to be good for Din Djarin here when he has to answer this question to her. And she says, you're no longer a Mandalorian. And it's just like, wow, this episode is very active. You know, it's very progressive. Things keep happening in this episode to keep it moving. And big things happen to keep the story moving. There's a lot that happens. But in all fairness, I mean, Din Djarin did win the Darksaber in the duel. He gets to keep the Darksaber. He keeps his Beskar armor. You know, just because you're not technically a Mandalorian according to the armor doesn't mean she could tell you what to wear, you know, I guess is kind of the idea. And so he kind of keeps everything, and he goes off onto a flight, and it's very relatable to real life. I like the way that Bryce Dallas Howard kind of incorporated this into her episode, where we had this very realistic moment where he kind of had to check things into security before getting on this flight. But such a little moment like this just created so much tension, because once he puts the Darksaber into the case, you're like, no, that's gonna get lost. And then you're kind of holding your breath throughout that entire time. But Mando's on the flight, and he's looking at the thing. He's gonna give the child whatever he had her forge for Grogu. And we're just very much looking forward to, I think everybody is, knowing what this thing is. He gets off the flight, he's able to retain his items, and he opens up the case, and the Darksaber's still there. Finally, we get to take a sigh of relief, and we're all happy about that. But we find out that Din Djarin went to Tatooine, and you start to go, oh boy, this is how he's going to run into Boba some way or another. But then he ends up going to Amy Sedaris' character. I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. Somebody comment it below. Sorry about that. Turns out she's been working on a replacement of the Razor Crest for him, and you know, he doesn't really like it. He thinks it looks like junk, and let's be honest, if you look at this next to the Razor Crest, it doesn't look like much, just not knowing anything about it. But we know as the audience that's an N1 Star Cruiser, meaning this was used in Naboo. We know what something like this can do just from watching Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and it's great to see one of these again. The other thing I really loved here was also just seeing a BD droid. We haven't seen one of those since the Jedi Fallen Order video game, so that was something cool that they pulled forward. And you know, whether this is actually BD1 or not, I don't think so, because they never called it BD1, but they did, you know, show it as a BD droid, and I was happy to see Amy Sedaris carrying one of those, and it does act very similar to BD1, so maybe it is BD1. We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, Din Djarin wants his credits back, but she says, wait, before you take them back though, let me tell you about what this thing can do. And of course, as the audience, we already know this thing's gonna be cool, and Mando really ends up liking it after hearing about this stuff, and he wants to make upgrades. And she tells him about how these Jawas, they go out and they find the parts that she needs, and that's how she builds it from scratch. And it's really cool how they set all that up. I'm actually really liking the Amy Sedaris character a lot more after this episode. Again, this episode just does so much for Star Wars, for The Mandalorian, for the Book of Boba Fett series. It just builds so much out in one episode, and I really loved it. I loved how productive it was. So, you know, they're all gathering parts, and they're building, you know, this N1 Star Cruiser, and that's really awesome to see. I even like that he called the BD droid little guy, like he said, thanks little guy. It was such a reference and a callback to Jedi Fallen Order. That's what Kyle Kestis would call BD1. So love that. That was a really cool reference. There's also a reference to Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. So I know that's going to make a lot of people mad. I'm not me. I love the movie, so I'm clear here, and I actually enjoyed the reference. She said that this thing goes faster than a Fathier. The sequence with the Star Cruiser was amazing though. It brought me back to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So really enjoyed watching that, especially when she was like, take it down that way, I'll take it to Baker's Cannon. And it's like, oh my gosh, don't you remember this from Star Wars, you know? It's so cool to see. So it just really did take me back to that, and so much fun to watch again. So had a great time with that. And just seeing how fast the ship could go. I mean, the sequences with him flying this thing were beautiful, and then him going up, out, you know, into space, and then he gets stopped by the 2 police officers, and one of the officers is one of the officers that stopped him in Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2. And he's piecing it together that this is Din Djarin. And I remember him giving him the warning, you know, he let him go that one time, but he was like, next time you're not going to be as lucky, and you know, that, you know, so that's not good, you know, for Din Djarin. So Din Djarin just takes off, and they're like, how did he jump to hyperspace, and they're like, he didn't jump. That's just, it's pretty much how fast the ship goes. It's a sublight whatevers, you know. It's awesome. It's awesome stuff. And the exchange between the two officers when he's like, do you really want to report this, go back and do paperwork all day? He's like, nope, and he gets out of there. Mando lands back onto Tatooine, and Amy Sedaris says, oh yeah, I wanted to mention that you had a friend come by. And he says, who? And then you just hear the voice, right? Fennec Shand. And Fennec Shand's sitting up there in the rafter. She jumps down, and then she says, hey, you want a job? Mando asked her what the score was. She says it pays really well. And then he's like, you know what, forget it, I'll do it on the house. Once he finds out it's Boba Fett that needs his help and needs muscle, he remembers everything Boba did for him in The Mandalorian Season 2, so he's going to do this one on the house. I think this is super cool, and this is how he's going to really end up with Boba Fett and partnering up with him. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Then we get the tease at the end, though, where he says, I got to go visit a little friend first. Oh my gosh. So it's really setting up that he's going to go see Grogu. I hope that's what we get in the next episode. I think that's going to be awesome if that's the case. I kind of hope Boba goes with them on this little detour before he goes down to help Boba, and that could be a really cool episode of the Book of Boba Fett. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but hey, it seems really cool, and I'm loving every minute of this. It is interesting that the, episode of the Book of Boba Fett I like the most so far is definitely this one, and this is the one episode that doesn't actually have Boba Fett in it. So just an interesting thing right there. But hey, guys, look, I loved it. This was awesome. I'm just happy we have great Star Wars here. Phenomenal Star Wars at that. I just love the imagery. I thought Bryce Dallas Howard did a great job directing this episode. She has done on everything else, so I'm very happy with this. So let me know what you guys thought of the episode in the comments below. Did you enjoy it? Was it your favorite? I think it's going to be most people's favorite. Guys, if you haven't done so already, please go check out the Imperial Order podcast with myself and Jose Espinel. We also talk about Boba Fett there, amongst many other things going on in the world of Star Wars, so make sure you check that out as well. Guys, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback in the comment section, share this with your friends, hit the bell for notifications. That'll do it for this segment of Imperial Order, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. So thank you guys so much for coming, and we'll see you guys later.